Well, we've come to the end of a whole other year. Wow. Time's winged chariot is hurrying near. And this is a chance to get some extra commentary on all of the videos we've made this year, because there's quite a lot that goes on which never really gets to the YouTube screen. So this is a chance to talk about how brilliant all the videos we've made are. Now, the first thing that I want to make clear is a big thank you to all of my Patreons. Now, what you might not be aware of is that I don't really have a job. History is my job. Everything I earn through my historical work, whether through YouTube or public speaking or my book. And so being a patron really does make a massive difference, because it enables me to continue making these videos. We pour a lot of personal cost, time and effort into them, and your contribution really does make a big difference and allow them to continue. So a big thank you for that, and I will put the link in the description if you want to become a member as well. Now, the interesting thing with this year is that I was really taking a slow productivity approach, which is basically working less but doing more. Because last year I made 26 videos on the channel, and this year we only made 18. By making fewer videos, we've been able to make sure that each video is of a higher quality, and so it all evens out. What we've been trying to do this year is really growing our skills as filmmakers. So when people ask me what I do, I don't say I'm a YouTuber, I'm a filmmaker. That's what I want to do. I want to make historical documentaries, and so all of these videos have been getting more complex and elaborate because we want to treat this experience of being in YouTube as being our film school. We've been spending all of this time practicing and learning and developing our skills so that, you know, we can take over the world. And this year has been record-breaking because for the 6th straight year in a row, we've had the most ever annual views, which is incredible. So thank you to everyone who has watched, shared and commented on the videos. You've enabled this to happen, and it's very much appreciated. Now, we started off with the Time Machine, our second H.G. Wells video. And when I was putting this one together, I was thinking, you know what? We need a time machine. So I said to my dad, who is a retired handyman, could you build me a time machine? And obviously he built one out of all of the odd bits and pieces lying around the house. And what you may not realise is that this is actually a fully functioning time machine, because if you get on it, 5 minutes later when you get off, you have very much travelled forward in time. It was a really enjoyable video to make. It has a very important social message, so I would highly recommend checking that out. And at this point, I've got to say, because we've learned so much as we go along, we feel that with every video we make, it's the best thing we've made up to that point, because we're always trying to do something new or do something a bit different and always try to make it better than the one that's gone before. So to save me from saying that 18 times, I'll just say it now, that every single video we feel is the best thing we've made up to that point, and there you've heard it once and for all. The next one we made was the Donington Grand Prix, or Racing Hitler, and this was such a lot of fun to make because obviously we were going to build a 1930s racing car. Obviously I was going to attempt to cover Of the Chain, obviously that's what we were going to do. It was a really interesting one to research. It's very powerful in the stories it tells about some of the most famous racing drivers of the era, and what it tells us today about sports washing in culture and society nowadays. So again, I would recommend checking that one out. Now, as you may have gathered over the course of the year, the sets have been getting bigger and more elaborate. The whole production has been taken up a notch. And you might be thinking, well, why do you do this? Why do you build all of these sets? The answer is because it's so much fun. You know, here's the thing, right? We could do green screen, right? We have the materials to do green screen. But we don't want to do green screen because what we like is the tangibility and the tactility of physical production. So when we get in cardboard and paints and we're drawing sets on like this and sticking wallpaper, it makes it feel real and it feels alive. And at a time when so much of the internet is fake, it's artificial, we want to clinch something real, and we think that we're bringing this kind of DIY, affectionate realness to filmmaking, which we really value. So the next video I made was about the Bingley Five Rise locks. 2024 was the 250th anniversary of their opening, and we were invited by the Canal and River Trust to celebrate that, and it was a lot of fun. I took my very first ride on a canal boat, so that was a lot of fun. Then we made U633. And the story behind this one goes back all the way to January when we visited HMS Belfast, which is a fantastic ship I would highly recommend. And on the way back from that, I was thinking, well, we've obviously got to do something naval, right? We've just been on this massive warship. We've got to do something naval. And I was struggling to think of a story. And then eventually I came across a story of U633, and I was like, this is perfect, because this is a merchant ship ramming and sinking a U-boat. This is like the prey becoming the predator. We could have done like an animated reconstruction, but that wouldn't have looked very good because I'm not a good animator. So instead we thought, well, we can make models, we can just do a real life reenactment of it, and I think it turned out so much better. We had an interview with probably the world's leading expert on German U-boats, and then the video did nothing. It was very disappointing, which is a shame, because sometimes you put a lot of time, money and effort into something. I mean, I'd spent the best part of 3 months on this video and the algorithm just hadn't pushed it, which is annoying, but that is the game that you're playing, and it's one of the risks you have to take. So I still really love that video, and I would highly appreciate giving it a watch if it sounds of interest. Then we came to The Invisible Man, which was our third H.G. Wells video. You know, we'd done War of the Worlds, we'd done The Time Machine. You've got to finish it off with a trilogy, we'll do The Invisible Man. This was really fun to do. It was very philosophical, actually. It's probably our most straightforwardly philosophical video, examining the nature of morality and things like that. And it was a lot of fun to put together, so please do watch that as well. Something else that happened that summer was my book, A Yorkshire Year, turned a year old. They grow up so fast. It's an incredible journey, really, being able to see your book in bookshops and then have people from all over say that they've bought it and enjoyed it. And so if you would like a copy, it is still available in bookshops and online. It's 366 days of the year of folklore, customs and traditions. Basically, if it's old and traditional, it's in there. Then we had our first big viral moment of the year with the Battle of Winwade. I'm particularly passionate about this one because this is one of the things where people will talk about it, but they might never have set foot in the area. You know, they're talking about Seacroft and Winmore. That's where I grew up. So I felt this ownership over it of, if there's going to be any historian talking about the Battle of Winwade, it's going to be one who actually grew up in the area where people say it happened. It yielded the first major viral moment, which is always really surreal. You know, you're getting like a couple of hundred views in an hour, where normally that's what you dream of in a couple of days. It is very, very gratifying, but it is at the whims of a capricious and arbitrary algorithm. So, you know, you have to take what you can get, really. Something else nice that happened was that I was named as one of History Extra's top 30 historians under 30 in the hollowed ranks of the young history makers, which I am extremely privileged for and thankful for, so thank you. Then we went theological and talked about John Wycliffe, the rabble-rousing Protestant reformer from Yorkshire in the 14th century. And this was a video that I was really passionate about because it's about challenging the prevailing narratives and beliefs about the Reformation. The Reformation was going on for quite some time before we think it did. That is a very TV-esque video. We were trying to incorporate more TV documentary styles of filming, and it turned out really well, and it's become a surprising sleeper hit. It's proved very popular, which is very gratifying because we obviously did put a lot of work into it. Then we returned to Thrushcross Reservoir, and this was a really interesting video to make because when I originally made a video about Thrushcross, it was a very warm summer, so the reservoir had dried up and you could see the remains of the village underneath. By contrast, a couple of years later, it was extremely rainy. The reservoir had completely filled up. So you could see this real contrast in the relation between weather, climate and heritage. And also, as a fairly unscripted video, there was no firm structure, we were really just going there and seeing what would happen. That was a really interesting and enjoyable experience. So that video performed really well and we were really pleased with that, because it is always extremely gratifying when something you've put so much work into gets appreciated by a lot of people. Then we went to Craven Museum, and this year one of the things we wanted to do was to work closer with museums and institutions. We asked them to choose 6 of their favourite objects, and they came back with some really interesting selections which we talked through, and it was a really lovely video to make actually, because a lot of these smaller regional museums, they have really interesting objects, but they don't really have the resources to make proper documentaries about them, but we can. So we were really glad to help out on that and to introduce people to this collections that hopefully if they're in the area they can visit. Then we had the Royal George disaster, and
the disaster being the viewing figures.
This is one of those things where the idea is completely random. You know, you got to be on the lookout for all of these opportunities. So we were on the way back from filming at Craven Museum, and we see this pub called the Royal George. And I'm a big appreciator of eccentric pub names, and I've never heard of that before. So I think, oh, I'll give that a Google. I discover this story, and I'm like, this is fascinating. This is amazing. We should do a video about this. So I start researching, We make the video. It's a very good video actually. It's got Skelly. I'm very proud of how it came together. And then it did nothing. It was suppressed by the algorithm, it was. Now maybe it was my fault because I decided to do an A/B test on the thumbnails. But for whatever reason, it flopped. Like, biggest flop ever, right?
Second
biggest flop. And I was so annoyed. Like, you know, viewers, right? You've poured your blood, toil, tears and sweat into something and it does nothing. And you're thinking, you know, Van Gogh's artworks also weren't appreciated in his lifetime. So anyway, please watch it because it's a very interesting video. It's a very tragic story and it's got a lot of lessons for us today. Right. Now on to Barry, our most experimental film of the year. The story, again, was something that I just stumbled on randomly. I sometimes go to the horse races and I was thinking, is there a video in this? Is there something that we can do about horse racing? And I just found this story and it had everything. It had crime, 1920s gangsters. It was a lot of fun. And then as we were writing it, we realised, no, it needs to be a bit special. It can't just be me sat here talking at you, the audience, and explaining what happened. Why don't we make these people into real characters? Why don't we tell it as a narrative, like an actual short film? So that's what we decided to do. And I knew that it was going to be more experimental, so it wasn't going to be as popular as other videos. And that was a risk I was willing to take for the sake of art, really, because, you know, we're wanting to grow in our skills, we're wanting to push the boundaries a little bit, and this was such a lot of fun to make. Playing all of the different characters, telling this story in such a unique and immersive way. So even though this didn't really perform well, I don't mind that because it's one of our exhibition pieces. It's demonstrating our skills, so I'm really quite proud of it and you should check it out. The noir version I would also highly recommend as well. Some people actually prefer it to the original and I probably agree with them. It has a very 1940s noir vibe about it, and again it's demonstrating our ability to, you know, present history in an increasingly creative way. You're probably thinking, what's all of this business with raccoons? We found this video one day of 2 raccoons trying to open a closed door. And I just loved it because it was like us trying to break into the screen industry. So we took the Radio Pictures intro from classic 1930s films like King Kong. We was like, okay, raccoon radio, that's what we're going to do. Something else that happened around that time is that I made my second national TV appearance. I was featured in an episode of Abandoned Railways from Above with a segment about an airfield near York. And that is available on Channel 4 streaming, as well as SBS Australia. And the video connected to that is the one on 77 Squadron. So we were asked to produce our own video about this topic, and then they filmed us filming that, which was extremely meta. So then we went to Elizabeth Howe and the Salem witch trials. And again, this was just a random idea one day. And I was listening to Season of the Witch by Donovan. Banger. And I was thinking, witch, Salem, Elizabeth Howe. And it was October and it was Halloween. Oh my gosh. Perfect video idea. So in the space of about a week, I researched, wrote, filmed, edited it, and got it already. And again, just another fantastic little film, great lighting and photography, doing that story justice in a way which hasn't really been done like that before. Then we interviewed Dr. Helen Fry about her new book, How I Became an Ex-Troop Commando. And again, this was something a little different to what we usually do. This was interviewing someone else about their work and having a more free-flowing podcast-style conversation about a historical work. And it was really enjoyable. So we're really thankful for that opportunity and being able to share that story with a wider audience. So finally, the grand finale. The biggest and best video ever made on this channel yet. Gas bags. The history of British airships. What this started off with was that I had the kernel of an idea to do something about R100 and R101. It's very famous, it's been done a lot of times. And then as I just sort of went through life, I kept encountering airships in different forms. Like, I would go to art gallery exhibitions and they would have things about R38 and I'm like, is this a sign that I need to do more about airships? And we realised that to properly tell the story, you can't tell it in isolation. You need actually to tell the full story. And so I started researching and writing, and eventually it became the longest script that I've ever written. We were like, well, it's just going to be however long it's going to be, to tell the story. And again, it started off as being fairly typical of me sitting at this desk telling you, the audience, all of these facts, but we realised, we can do it better, we can do it different. Let's be a bit creative. So then we rewrote it to have Hostess Kath, Captain Dirigible, Cyril Servant, just doing things in a bit of a different way and making it a bit more entertaining. It was one of the most difficult things to put together, I must say, put in a big shift editing there, but it turned out really well. We're really proud of it. It feels like proper TV documentary stuff, and we can show people, we made this and we're proud of it, and we're just really glad for everyone who's watched it. So you might be thinking, well, what's in store for next year? Well, we have lots of ideas. We're still going to be making these fantastic little documentaries because it's what we love doing. We're really grateful for the fact that we're able to do them. Also going to be exploring a wider range of projects as well. So I'm, for example, really keen on exploring more music. I did a couple of parody songs on my channel. I've also been doing more soundtracks for videos, for otherwise copyrighted songs. And I'm really keen in exploring music as a way of entertaining and educating people about history. But really what we care about is making history interesting, accessible and engaging for all. So we're really snatching every opportunity that comes our way because we are two raccoons trying to open that locked door to the screen industry.
What are we doing today, Kath?
Same thing we do every day. Try take over factual programming.